Hello, this is Pegleg. I just wanted to come at you guys today with a quick little video just talking about some things that I do when I'm through hiking, especially on trails like this year where I'm doing something that involves big days back to back to back for the entire year. Just some strategies for making miles and trying not to waste time over the course of the day and just mostly save time more than anything. So these are just a few tips and tricks, really just that I've been kind of passively doing this year and just kind of have been thinking about more recently. I actually watched someone's YouTube video not too long ago, and they were talking about just ways that they were trying to save time. They found that the breaks they were taking were a little bit too long, and they just weren't sure exactly how you could make such big miles every day because something always comes up that you have to dedicate time to. So these are just a few things that I kind of have in my routine that just help to make the day go by faster, and it stops me from taking like 5 shorter breaks over the course of the day. So first up, the night before when I'm at camp, I filter 2 liters or 1.5 to 2 liters of water so I can leave camp with that in the morning. And I know that's a little heavier, like you could carry less water and fill up more frequently at water sources, but I like to start my day with about 2 liters of water. That way I don't have to stop again for water until maybe like halfway through the day. If it's colder, sometimes even later in the day. So just that one thing is saving me from stopping. And every time you stop and take your backpack off, even if you're just filtering water, maybe it's only gonna take 5 minutes, it has a tendency to be cumulative. So you sit down, take your pack off, and then maybe eat a snack or stretch, and all of those things are great. I think it's important to make time for all of that. But if you're doing a few little techniques, you can avoid letting those periods of time add up. So I filter my water the night before, and then I leave camp and I'm set for probably the first 10 to 15 miles of the day with water. And another thing I do at camp in the morning before I leave is I get out the entire day's worth of snacks and food and have it handy in my backpack. So I carry a Palante desert pack. It has 2 chest straps, and I put a bunch of snacks in the chest straps, and then it has a bottom pocket, which is huge. So I put things in the bottom pocket, and maybe if it's bigger, bulkier items, I put those in the back mesh pocket, and just find places for all of the food and snacks outside of my pack. So if I have to stop and get something, it's easy to access and it doesn't take a ton of time. And another thing is sometimes I won't even take my backpack fully off if I'm going to grab something. I'll just keep walking and I'll pop it off one of my shoulders and kind of bring the pack to my front so that I can grab things in the back of it without ever actually fully stopping, which it doesn't seem like that would save a ton of time, but every minute honestly adds up, especially if your goal is to do something like a marathon a day or 30 miles a day. Like this year, I kind of have to average around 26 miles a day, but most of the time I'm trying to do about 30 miles a day. Yesterday, I did 37 miles and it was in about 12 hours, even with some rocky terrain. And I'd say the most helpful thing that I do is eliminating these extra breaks. That's what saves me the most time every single day. So on the same note of like not fully taking your backpack off, I also do that with layers. So I try to start the day in as few layers as possible so I can avoid having to like take my pack off and de-layer. But typically I'll start my day in my Montbell wind jacket. It just really helps to insulate me and keep me warm if it's a little cold and breezy in the morning. And I've mastered the technique of taking that jacket off with my backpack on. So I kind of just pull a little slack away, slip one arm out. Depending on the type of jacket you wear, you might have to take one shoulder strap off to pull the arm out of your jacket. but the backpack I have and the jacket I use, I'm actually able to slip the jacket fully off with my backpack on. So as long as I decide to do that in an area where the terrain's not too technical, then I don't even have to take my backpack off to take that layer off. Once again, that might only save a few minutes, but once you get your backpack off, it's a wild card. You just never know. Are you now gonna sit down or do something else? So just to save that time, I love to do that. Just take the jacket off, shove it in my bottom pocket so I have it accessible. And I do that with gloves and stuff too. I just have places that I keep things so that if I layer or delayer throughout the day, everything's super handy. And it's definitely harder to get the jacket back on with the backpack on. That is way harder. It's almost faster and easier to take the pack off to do that. But normally in the day, you're taking a layer off. Unless rain starts or something, normally you're not adding layers back on throughout the day. At least not me or this time of year. But that helps to save a decent amount of time. So then I'm also eating throughout the day, but I'm not taking breaks to eat. If I'm doing 37 miles or something and I have cheese and stuff, I might sit down, take a 15-minute break to cut some cheese and eat cheese. But I typically try to pack out snacks and lunches and things that I don't need to sit and prepare in order to eat them. So what that means is this last resupply, I made a bunch of sandwiches. So I had some pimento and cheese sandwiches and some peanut butter and fluff sandwiches. And I packed those things out. I kept them handy. And then I could just wait until a downhill section, which wasn't too rocky, or a flat section. I'll usually check the map just to see, okay, the next hour is gonna be pretty easy terrain, and I'll eat some snacks or I'll eat a sandwich, and I'm not sitting down to do that and killing time. Obviously, you have to listen to your body. If you need a break, you need a break. When I first started down in Key West 109 days ago, I was stopping every 2 to 3 hours to stretch. For me, that was critical for injury prevention. But as time went on, I kind of just began slowly elongating the periods between breaks in a way that made me feel comfortable and made me feel like I wasn't hurting myself. So now it's to the point where I can go 20 or 30 miles without sitting down. It's not something I'm scared I'm going to hurt myself by doing, and I'm not suggesting that you do it if you've never done it before. But if you're trying to do bigger days, I think less frequent braking is a pretty important component of that. So I'll try to eat as I walk as much as I can. And yeah, I mean, yesterday, it might sound crazy, but I did 37 miles and I only stopped twice to filter water. And I sat on my backpack one time to filter, and I stood and filtered between my feet the other time. So I really didn't stop moving for more than a few minutes for the entire day. And that's not something you should just start immediately on a thru hike. But over the last, 3.5 months, it's something I've gotten more and more comfortable with. I've kind of stretched that out by doing maybe 10 miles with no break, 15, then 20. And then one day maybe you want to get to town fast and you go 30 miles without a break. And you just push that comfort back and back. And if I did feel sore or something, I would stop and I would stretch. That's very important. But you don't always feel that way. I think you get stronger and your body gets used to what you're doing, or sometimes it does. It has for me. So yeah, eating while you walk, I think, is very critical. I've heard some people say that they burn a lot of time cooking hot lunch, which sometimes I love a hot lunch. I think it's a very easy way to get a ton of protein and calories and just good nutrients in, but it takes time to boil the water and wait for the meal to cook. And then those big meals, they take me a while to eat. So if I was going to cook hot lunch, it would probably at least take 30 minutes, probably 45 minutes or more. So I'd say, depending on your dietary requirements and how long of a stretch you're going in between resupplies, pack out sandwiches or snacks or things you can eat, or even if you pack out tortillas and different things to put in them. You could make your tortilla wraps in the morning before you leave and bag them up so they're still pretty fresh. And then you could eat them while you're walking if that's what you want to do. One way to save time while through hiking is eating while you walk. Obviously, if you want to go slow, enjoy a hike, and there's no rush, take as many breaks as you want. There's no reason not to. I love breaks. They're incredible, especially if you're at a scenic overlook or something. But when your goal is different, like mine is this year, I think it's important to just be productive with my time, and strategic is what I would call it. Strategic with my breaks and the way I use my time. So avoid hot lunch. Even if you can't eat meat, like I just made pimento and cheese sandwiches the other day, and I carried them for 2 days, and they were delicious on day 1 and day 2. And each sandwich, because of how thick the bread was and how much cheese there was, they were like 700 or 800 calories per sandwich. So yesterday I ate 4 sandwiches and a few other snacks, and that was almost 4,000 calories. I felt incredible. I stopped to get water when I needed. I drank a ton of water, but I would filter water and then I would start walking and put my electrolytes into my bottle while I walked. So that took, less than a minute, but that's a minute I didn't spend standing at the water source. And it's just all of those little things, honestly. I think one other thing is if I'm feeling really sore, I prioritize stretching. But if I'm not feeling super sore and just kind of want to stretch, there's a couple stretches I'm going to include in a clip here. That is stretches you can do while you're standing with your backpack on. So you can do a couple IT band and hip and knee stretches just by balancing with a trekking pole or by a tree. And then you save a lot of time because you're not taking your pack off and sitting down and getting comfortable. I think it can be kind of contagious energy to do that, which once again is not a bad thing, but it just depends what your goals are for the day. So I have some stretches that I do while I'm standing with my pack on, and they usually feel really good. It's not something I do every day, but some days I do. All right, I want to show you a couple stretches that you can do super quick when you're standing with your backpack still on. So I just hold my poles to keep balance, bend my one knee, and then sort of just like sit into this position a little bit, and then flip and just sort of bend the knee that's like planted on the ground and just kind of sit into that. And the only other one is kind of putting your hip back, like leaning back with your hip and forward, just to sort of stretch out like your hip and up through your butt. And those are both really good stretches to do super quick. Don't even have to take your backpack off. And then there's a few other little things that I do to save time. I'd say one of them is when I used to have a bigger backpack, I would take my backpack off every time I went pee. My pack was just heavier and bulkier, and it was hard for me to squat down with my backpack on. But nowadays, I just unclip my hip belt. I usually try to go by like a small tree or something so I can balance a little bit with something, but I pee with my backpack on. And it doesn't sound like it would save a lot of time, but if you're peeing 6 times a day and every time you're stopping and taking your pack off, putting it down, squatting to pee, getting your clothes back on, putting your pack back on, getting moving again, everything just takes time. And you think these 4 or 5 little things don't add up, and then you do all of them in one day, and we're talking a lot of time. It could be 30 minutes, but all of those little breaks, and they could add up to hours in a day. And those are hours that are just going to get you to camp later, have you being more tired, out of energy, get your sleep cycle off, and they just stand in the way of your goal. So these are just little tips and tricks that I do. There's definitely more things that I'll probably think of. I might add some other clips to here, and I'm gonna add some clips of, these different things that I do and show you how I do them and everything. But these are some of my calendar year Triple Crown tips. I'm 109 days in. I've averaged pretty much 27 miles every single day for this entire year. I've only taken 5 0 days and a handful of Nero days, which most of them have been in the teens or low 20s. And people ask a lot, you know, how do you do 36 miles in 12 hours? And obviously the terrain has a lot to do with it. If it's rooty, rocky, slippery, snowy, then things are gonna take more time. But I think for me, what works the most is I'm not burning a ton of time during the day. I'm not sitting 4 or 5 times a day to eat snacks, that's for sure. On a good day, maybe I take one break. I'm eating as I go. I'm starting my day with water, and I'm just being strategic about my time every single day. So leave a comment below if you have other helpful tips for people about how to be strategic with your time while through hiking, how to make big miles and avoid unnecessary breaks. These are just the things that work for me.